This is the time that I was quite literally booted out of the country of Burkina Faso. And I should say on the onset, okay, maybe not booted. Booted's probably not the right word. I'm probably not being accurate right now. I was denied admittance to the country of Burkina Faso in West Africa. And I'm going to say on the onset that I 1,000,000% support this. A country has the right to deny admittance to any individual for any reason. Right? I mean, it's a sovereign nation. Just as the United States, I don't want to get into the immigration status of the United States. Just as France has the right to deny admittance to the country of France if they find something that is triggering or if they find something that is suspect, France has that right. So Burkina Faso has the right to deny admittance. They have the right to not allow me into their country, and that's what happened. So I'll sort of set the stage for this one. So I was in West Africa, and it was a rather long trip in West Africa. I was doing 6 or 7 countries in West Africa, and I believe this was my 3rd time to West Africa. And I had been in Togo. I was in Lomé, Togo. And to get to Burkina Faso, I had to kind of go a roundabout way. African flights are tough. It's not like connecting Detroit and Boston. Even if it looks close on a map, you might be taking a roundabout way to get to these countries. It's supply and demand type stuff. I mean, there's just not the demand in West Africa for a direct flight from Lomé, Togo to Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. So it wasn't an option. It's relevant to the story. So I was flying Lomé, Togo to the Ivory Coast, Abidjan, and then Abidjan to Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. So even though on the map it looks close, looks like there should be a direct flight, there's not. So the visa status for these countries, Togo, I believe, is a VOA country. I should have researched this before I started this podcast, but I believe Togo is a VOA, which means visa on arrival country. Ivory Coast is not. So Ivory Coast is an e-visa country. That just means that you need to go to, either use an agency, which is going to charge you way more, or, use the official Ivory Coast website, government website, and apply for an e-visa before you get there. And for a lot of these African nations, you need to have the print. You actually have to print it out. Like some of the countries now, you just show it on your phone, right? Even New Zealand has for Americans, it's a you have to do so. I can't remember what it's called. ETA. I think it's electronic travel authorization. And it's super easy, and you get it on your phone, and then they send you the confirmation on your phone, and then you just show it to immigration. But Africa, you need to actually print out the paper. And this is all relevant. I'm not just going on an irrelevant rant, which I tend to do anyways. But so that's the status of Ivory Coast for American citizens. The status for Burkina Faso is that American citizens can get a VOA, a visa on arrival. And this is according to official Burkina Faso government websites. I don't go to, Yahoo AI and type in, does an American need a visa to go to Burkina Faso. Because who knows, the information could not be up to date. Visa statuses change often. And to stay up to date, you need to use official government websites. That's it. I mean, especially if you're in African nations that tend to change favor. And when I say change favor, I mean they're not in favor of Americans having an easy way to get to their country, for one reason or another. Maybe they don't want many Americans. Maybe it's just the country's choice for one reason or another. And countries 100% have this right. So yeah, I had the documentation I needed to get the visa on arrival. So I went Lomé, Togo to Abidjan, and then Abidjan to Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou. And I land in the airport, and I go to the visa on arrival counter. And I talked to the lady and said, here's the filled out information for the visa on arrival. And she collected the information, and then she said, have a seat. Okay, have a seat. So I had a seat. And about 40 minutes passes, and a general comes out. He looked like a general. He had a military uniform on. Maybe he was a sergeant, lieutenant. So he comes up, and he's like, what are you doing here? And, just tourism, yeah, just here for, visa on arrival. I'm here for 4 days. Here's my itinerary. I usually have like an itinerary, like to show what my plans are in the country, what I'm doing there. People ask you that kind of stuff. And he says, okay. And he's like, give me your passport. This I don't love to do. Sometimes in these places, you don't know who's coming up to you. They could look official, but they're not official. And I'm not picking on Africa here. There's some third world nations that have, first world nations have bad actors. Every country has bad actors. Okay. And I don't love this because I have to take him at his word though, right? Because if he isn't official, he's got the right to take my passport. So I've got to give it. At that point, I have to give it. If I want to get into this country. If I say, no, you can't have my passport. All right, see you later. I don't know what happens at that point. So, yeah, I give him my passport, and another 40 minutes or so goes by. And he's like, follow me. And he's leading me all into these back ways of the airport. I'm not in immigration anymore. I was at the baggage check at one point. And I'm like, this is a really interesting way they're taking me. This is not the usual process. And then, so I'm in baggage claim, and then I'm in departures. And this is when I'm putting the pieces together. This is when I'm putting the pieces together. It doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes at this point. And I'm handed a ticket back to Abidjan. No explanation. Just handed my passport and handed a ticket to Abidjan. That was leaving within 20 minutes. And told my baggage was on the plane. And I had a backpacker's bag at the time. And then I board the plane. Here's the kicker, though. So Burkina Faso gives me the boot. And they're sending me to the Ivory Coast. I don't have a visa for the Ivory Coast because I wasn't expecting to be in the Ivory Coast. It was just transit, right? And if you're a transit, anybody who's flown anywhere really, If your final, it's always your final destination that you need the right paperwork for, right? So if you're at United and you're going to Abu Dhabi, but you fly through Moscow, which you wouldn't, but well, depending on the area, the origin place, maybe you are flying through Moscow. It doesn't matter if you have a visa for Moscow or not. You're not staying in Moscow. Your final destination is Abu Dhabi. So your status with the UAE is what matters, not with Russia. So that's what flight attendants are checking, or anybody that works for the airline. They need to check to make sure that you have the right documentation for the final destination. And I was checked from Lomé, right? Togo. And clearly I must have met the airline's requirements to be in Ouagadougou, or they wouldn't let me on the plane. If you don't have the right documents, they're not going to let you on the plane. So the whole thing was just bizarre. But so they're sending me back to the Ivory Coast, and I'm in the air, and I'm like, I don't have a visa for Ivory Coast. This is not part of the plan. So I land in Abidjan, and I'm trying to sort of explain the situation. Because at that point, Burkina Faso's like, all right, we're done. They're not gonna send somebody to help me get it sorted out in the Ivory Coast. It's not their responsibility. It's my responsibility at that point. So, I put myself on the mercy of the court, and I explained my situation. And, it's late at this point. I think it took 3 or 4 hours to get like an expedited e-visa. I had to pay through my nose for this thing. And I eventually got a visa for the Ivory Coast. And, I've got to work out arrangements, where to stay and what I'm going to do there. And I had, plans from Ouagadougou too. Like I had onward movements from Ouagadougou. I was going to Senegal, I think. So anyways, yeah, I support Burkina Faso's right to do this, but it was a little annoying, but this is just an example of where travel is quite unpredictable and things just happen to you. Good at even if you have done everything right and you filled out the right paperwork and you've taken all the right steps, things can still go sideways. You can't plan for everything when you're traveling. Forget it. If you're going to try and plan for everything that could possibly go wrong in West Africa, you're never going to go to West Africa because you're just going to be constantly planning this amazing trip to West Africa that's not going to have any things that could go wrong. So it's just an example of how travel can take you to these situations that are hectic and a little bit annoying, but you just got to deal with it. I mean, you can't let it ruffle your feathers. You can't get upset about it. You can't write a strongly worded email to Burkina Faso and say, "How dare you?" You just have to be like, yeah, all right. They have the right to do that. I'll get a visa ahead of time next time I go to Ouagadougou, and that's that.